Sucked up. Fine.
Good. Yeah. Okay. I love you. One of my wonderful friends is on line.
Hello,
too.
wonderful
Yeah.
friend. Hello.
She's in California. She started doing yoga before me. Okay, welcome to the myofascia release workshop. We're going to do a lot of fun things today, but first I kind of want to give you just sort of the 101 on fascia and exactly the difference between regular stretching and myofascia stretching, which is not technically stretching, as you'll learn, because our fascia actually like elongates and expands. It's not technically stretching, but they don't really have a word that fits that right now. Yeah. Kind of a lot of the stuff that you start learning about the fascia system is they don't really have anatomy and structure yet for it. So it is kind of out in the wild a little bit, which makes it that much more fun. So if you look at the first page, I'm just going to read it off to you because this is straight out of the book of my teacher and he says it the best. So the fascial system surrounds, infuses with, and has the potential to influence profoundly every muscle, bone, nerve, blood vessel, organ, and cell of the body. Fascia also separates, supports, connects, and protects everything. This three-dimensional web of connected tissue is alive and ever-changing as the body demands. Thus, it is a network of information exchange, influencing and influenced by every structure, site, and cell in the organism. Like air and gravity, its influence is so all-pervasive that we have tended to take it for granted. Meaning that in the 60s, when they were doing cadaver labs, they would literally pull the fascia off the body and throw it out. Because our whole anatomy system is built off of a dead body. So there was no studying the body while it was alive. So and everything with the fascia is when you're alive, because that is kind of what they're learning is like the main communicator of the body. So yeah, I don't know why they did that.
Didn't know.
Right?
Yeah.
So fascia is a three-dimensional web of tough connective tissue that runs from the top of our heads to the bottoms of our feet and to the fingertips. It does not begin and end at specific locations as we think with bones and muscles, but rather it is continuous, forming an intricate net within the body. Some areas are denser or thicker than others, and there are some places where it solidly attaches to the skeleton. But most importantly, fascia surrounds and infuses every part of the body, including the bones, muscles, vessels, spinal cord, and internal organs, all the way down even to the individual cell. Meaning what they're finding is that inside each cell is an actual replica of our fascial system. So micro, macro, a very cool level. So the fascia system can therefore affect every system and function in the body. Most people think about their bones keeping them upright, but in reality, it is your fascia system. So you could technically take the bones and other stuff out of your body and it would still stay up because of your fascia. I've never done that, but the theory behind it, yeah, how powerful it is. A great analogy that John F. Barnes, who's my teacher, uses in the older style canvas is the older style canvas text. It contains the center poles and ropes anchored at each corner. The center poles are like the skeleton and the ropes are like the fascia system. If the ropes are of equal length and tension, the center poles stand perfectly erect. If, however, there is an asymmetry of the ropes, the poles lean sideways and the canvas becomes taut in some areas and loose at others. You can see how symmetry and balance of the fascial system is essential for proper alignment of the skeleton. That makes sense, everyone? Nice, easy analogy. That's the other thing about the fascial system. Me and my friend joke around, she's an MFR therapist as well, and we think a lot about the class simple machines. Because you start learning that the body is so mechanical in that way. And when you're trying to figure out how to work with it, go back to simple machines class and you start seeing a lot of similarities, which is they probably built machines off of our bodies. Every muscle of the body is surrounded by a smooth fascial sheath. Every muscular fascicle is surrounded by fascia. Every fibril is surrounded by fascia, and every microfibril down to the cellular level is surrounded by fascia. Therefore, it is the fascia that ultimately determines the length and function of its muscular component. Again, anatomy and physiology is getting rewritten. There is a lot of new stuff coming in, and a lot of this stuff is going along with it. And so it is really, really another good example would be an orange. So when you slice an orange, how you have the orange is divided into the slices. And then even when you like open the slice, everything's even separated inside. That's kind of the concept behind what I was just saying with your fascia, how it drops. It goes like, kind of like starts out big and then gets smaller and smaller and smaller and just gets more intricate and detailed. But it's all connected at the same time too. So you can work with it all together. Note how the fascia, so fascia is made of 3 parts: elastin fibers, collagen fibers, and ground substance of matrix. So the elastin fibers are strands of tissue that are flexible and allow for movement like elastics. Elastic compromises about 20% of the fibers in the fascial system. Skin is made primarily of elastin fibers. So regular stretching, that would be you're working your elastin fibers. That's what's getting. And so it's about 20% of the fascia system that you're getting to. Collagen fibers. These are the denser and less flexible ones. And those, they're made for support. And about 80% of the fibers within the fascia system are the collagen fibers. Cartilage and scar tissue have a high number of collagen fibers too. So the whole point of scar tissue and fascia is support. So whenever you hurt yourself, that's why it comes in, because it's supporting the body. What we don't allow is the next step, which is to release back down. So the fascia stays wound up exactly where it's supposed to be. And then we start doing all of our regular everyday activities, and it starts creating fascial restrictions throughout the body, which is one way you can create fascial restrictions. And that's where we'll get into next, but it has a lot to do with fight, flight, or freeze, PTSD, from car accidents, from any kind of accident. And it also has this emotional intelligence as well, where they're finding that's where it connects with the nervous system and connects with your senses. So that whole thing where you smell something and you're taken back to a specific place emotionally, that is your fascia. And that is it communicating. And that's how cool it is. So they've known all these things, they just haven't been able to connect it all together. And fascia is connective tissue.
So just to recap on that, so like with the scar tissue you were saying, so the fascia gets sent there to repair like whatever's happened.
Support.
So it builds it up. But then if you don't work the scar tissue, the fascia like becomes frozen almost.
Yeah,
and that's where the restrictions happen.
That's it's the 4th phase of water, which that ground substance of matrix, it's a water substance and it surrounds the fascia. And so now they have the 4th phase of water, which is crystallization, which came out in the 80s, which is what a snowflake is. I couldn't tell you what a snowflake was for the longest time. And each snowflake is completely different, right? Your fascia grows and everything, it's completely different for everybody. Everybody's fascia system looks completely different than everybody else's because it's emotional components, it's physical components, it's even genetic components. It's really cool. So fascial restrictions are areas in the body where the elastocollagenous complex, which is what they call all 3 of those things together. So the elastin, the collagen, and the ground substance, that's what they call the collagenous complex. Same thing. So fascial restrictions are areas in the body where this complex has become shortened and solidified. Fascial restrictions are often caused by chronic poor posture, injury, inflammation, surgery, or bracing against pain, trauma, and stress. The fascia will shorten, dehydrate, and ultimately cause pain or decreased function as it tightens around the nerves, vessels, and muscles. Fascia reorganizes along the lines of tension imposed on the body, adding support to misalignment and contracting to protect the individual from further trauma, real or imagined. This has the potential to alter organs and tissue physiology significantly. Fascial strains can slowly tighten, causing the body to lose its physiological adaptive capacity, potential energy. Over time, the tightness spreads like a pull in a sweater or a stocking is a really good visual. So, that pull just over time, like goes and goes and goes, and it starts affecting everything else around it. And then the whole sweater's unraveling.
Can you get it back? Can you get the sweater to shrink?
I've heard so.
Would that be like, is there any repair that can be done?
That's a good invention. Flexibility and spontaneity of movement are lost, setting the body up for more trauma, pain, and limitation of movement. So a lot of times while you'll get injury after injury after injury on the same side or something like that, it's like a domino effect of restrictions. These powerful fascial restrictions begin to pull the body out of its three-dimensional alignment with the vertical gravitation axis, causing, again, biomechanically inefficient, highly energy-consuming movement and posture. Strain, pressure, nerve prickles, muscle fatigue, pinching pains, etc., which I'm sure we've all felt. Because fascia is continuous throughout our bodies, fascial restrictions in one area can pull on another. That's what I was just talking about. Over time, this can create a new fascial restriction in the area being pulled on. A person can then develop symptoms or restricted motion at these new areas. The effects of fascial restriction can be seen on the skeletal system. Restrictions are often asymmetric within the body, pulling the body off center and out of its natural alignment. How many people have had an injury and then have had a different area pop up after the injury? There you go. A lot of times it'll be near the big muscles too, because the big muscles want to take over. The biceps, the quads, the hamstrings, the calves, and then all those little muscles in between get cut off, and then you're starting circulation issues, and then the nerve pain comes in and all that. So myofascial release, along with therapeutic exercise and movement therapy, improves the vertical alignment and lengthens the body, supporting more space for the proper functioning of nerves, osseous structures, blood vessels, and organs. So the concept behind myofascial release is that you are creating space within the fascia. And this is where, when you get into yoga stretches, it can kind of get conflicting, because yoga stretches can tend to be very compressing, like where you're like really twisting into something or something like that. If you don't have space in your fascia, you're fine, babe. If you don't have space in your fascia, there's no way that you're ever going to get there, right? So there's some sort of something going on where things are jammed up that you can continue. And I did this for years and years and years. I would get in a pose over and over and over, and nothing changed. And then I started like moving around and going into different planes and making my body more like a cylinder going around it than linear. And then you start finding all these little spots that are really, really tight. Because even if you do yoga every single day, you do the same poses, you're not going to realize what's still out of whack. And that's unfortunately what happens to people. Which I'll tell you guys real quick, my story kind of behind this, just to give you a second while we're going through this. But I found out after my 300-hour yoga teacher training that the right side of my fascia, so my entire right side, my fascia was going in the wrong direction, was torn up, like completely disconnected all the way down. I played sports growing up. Like I did all the things. I was constantly moving. Like I can't believe that I did do all the things that I did with my body going through all that. And it was caused from when I was 6 years old, when my hip, I was dancing and my hip kind of went out of place. Probably didn't even think about it, didn't even feel it. A lot of times kids won't even feel it, but that my hip getting pushed up caused my entire backside to push up. So my shoulder pushed up, I started getting TMJ in my jaw, my entire right side, it was like a frozen shoulder type restriction. And then my hip and all the way down the side as well, and then I was getting really bad wrist pain as well. It was like weird nerve pain all over the place, to the point where I was probably not gonna be able to teach yoga. And this was about 2.5 years ago. And I've been doing yoga for 7 years now. And I had just got into MFR when I found all this out. So it was like this beautiful thing, because honestly, if that hadn't happened, I probably would be getting shoulder surgery eventually. I probably would have got hip surgery. And that's what they lead to, is they lead to hip replacements, it leads to knee replacements, it leads to all kinds of shoulder issues like rotator cuff stuff. And that's why you do have to be really patient, because you've been going on these restrictions for years and years and years, but you have no idea until things start barking at you. And that's when they've had enough. And yeah, they're not going to be fixed after the first session. No. MFR also, I do MFR therapy, not only what we're going to be doing right here, but MFR therapy in general is so good, because you're on the massage table and you're getting these same kind of things that we're going to do, but you're absolutely relaxed. And so that's, if you have chronic pain going on, I definitely would recommend an MFR therapy session. And we have other therapists in the area too that I can hook you up with, and they're wonderful, that have learned by Mr. John F. So yes, that's all about MFR.
Cool. It's just so cool, because back how many years ago, this lady would at the ranger station MFR, and it was before you had it. It's like the knowledge is gaining, like everybody is hearing about it. It's like it's powerful. You know, it's gonna really change everything.
Yeah, because it is, once you see it and once you feel it,
Yeah,
you can't not. And even a lot of massage therapists, once they start doing MFR therapy, they do MFR therapy. Yeah. They don't go back to regular massage, because it's so much more efficient, because all these things we're talking about, it's assessing the whole body, you know, and it's getting rid of all these things. It's not just this one individual spot that we're working on. This spot is completely connected to everything else, so everything else gets adjusted too. Acupuncture is really good too, because it fits right in. Yeah, the meridian lines are very close to the main fascial lines. So real quick, I want to talk about fight, flight, or freeze response. So freeze is one that they started teaching later, right? So fight or flight has always been the main things. Now they're understanding that there's this freeze response, and you're getting almost triple the trauma in the body and staying like that, right? So if you think about a mouse that is playing dead, and it's sitting there and its whole insides are like freaking out, but outside it's very calm. When we go under for surgery, there is a part of your subconscious that is there. Your body is aware of what's going on, even though you are down. So there is this thing, but it's like being trapped and not being able to move, and everything inside of you is freaking out. And this is where they've come into the somatic therapy, the shake therapy. So if you ever watch a mouse after the threat goes away, it shakes, because it's got so much pent up emotional trauma and energy inside of it. It has to get rid of it. And primally, they do it. It's natural for them. They just do it. So if you ever, they'll sit there and they'll shake and they let it all out, and then they carry on with their day. Humans do the same thing, but we don't shake. So there's a lot of traumas that people will go through where they're stuck and there's nothing they can do about what's going on. Even not intense traumas, emotional situations, relationships and stuff you've been in, PTSD, anything environmentally that happens to you that you have absolutely no control of. It is the same thing, you know, and for some reason we just carry on, you know, without really assessing that. And that's another beautiful thing with the fascia system, working with it, is you can release that because it's very much in the tissue memory of your fascia. And then a lot of people, when they are getting MFR done, they have some emotional releases. I had this one lady, I was working on her toe, and she had like a full on, like it was so cool, but still wild to witness. But yeah, and she had no idea either, you know. And again, that's what I was saying, our fascia system is completely different from everybody else's because we hold everything differently than everybody else, just because of who we are, which is why being an individual is So fascia presents a fascinating solution to neurological issues stemming from past physical or emotional trauma. Not only do you remember the smell or taste of something, but you also recall any emotions wrapped up in that scent. We are also seeing now that PTSD can be remedied through working with our fascia. PTSD is a great example of tissue memory and how debilitating it can be to your present life. That's what I was talking about with the tissue memory. Continuing to be plagued by the past through the body is something they have been trying to figure out for a while. Fascia presents a fascinating solution to this. So that's a tricky one because it's personal for everyone, right? And it's little things that you would notice just for yourself. Say you had a bad accident in a storm, and now every time when you drive and it's raining, you feel your body start to tense up. That's your fascia. That's that emotional trauma, like still stuck in the body. And it is natural, but it's not necessary. Right. And so that's kind of what it is so how with such high stress lives that we live, how can we now eliminate the stuff that's not going on anymore because we're all going crazy? It just stacks on up. And there are other ways to get through it too without talking therapy. This is physical therapy, real physical. Also, there's a book called Waking the Tiger that goes into the fight, flight, or freeze and really gets into the human with that and what it goes through, because it is kind of a newer thing and they're really doing deeper dives because the freeze response tends to be more common now, especially for younger ones. So I want to go ahead and get into stretches and talk about stretching your fascia. There is a couple things in here. It's channel 3 and channel 5, diaphragmatic breathing and meditation. Those are all related, but it's all very much about getting your mind-body connection going. So it's not necessarily fascia related, but it's getting the body prepared to be able to release your fascia. So I'll let you guys read through that on your own too. I've also gone over some of that in the other workshop, so I don't want to be too repetitive for some of you. So there are a couple rules with stretching your fascia. 1, 5 minutes. So it takes 90 to 120 seconds to reach the collagenous barrier, which is like that restriction. So when you're stretching, like whatever we're doing, say we have the ball underneath our hamstring and we draw the leg down and you'll feel like a stop. That's the collagenous barrier. And then that's where you would hold for 90 to 120 seconds. After the 120 seconds is when it will start to release. So if you want to drop it then even further, you want to go after that. So that's why we then say 3 to 5 minutes is actually where you want to be landing when you're doing these kinds of stretches. And that's going to take you from just regular stretching, the 20-30% range of fascia, to more like 60-80% depth of getting into your fascia. And also restorative yoga and yoga nidra are also really good in learning how to get the body to be able to sit for that long. Because that tends to be the biggest thing. And I'm guilty of it too. Like I'll be doing stretches and I'll be like, I was in that for 10 seconds. Yeah, that did nothing. So timing is very important. I like to set a timer, which I will be doing for you guys, so you can kind of get an idea. We'll probably just do the 3 minutes so we can get through stuff. But yeah, timers are, because you really don't realize how long it is. When I started working on people, we have to hold for 3 to 5 minutes at the minimum on a spot. And that learning where that timing is too, is that you don't realize how long it is actually. So that was the first one. The second concept is telescoping or active elongation. So telescoping, say we take my arm right here. Instead of trying to do, say, like a shoulder stretch like this, or like this, which you see common in yoga classes, we're just letting our arm go out. And you are you're imagining your fingertips going out further and further and further, almost as if you're taking the shoulder out of the socket. It won't go out of the socket, but it might kind of feel like it, because again, we're going into kind of vulnerable spaces in the body where it'll get tight and it wants to come back. This is telescoping the arm. You want to make sure that the shoulder stays dropped though. A lot of times people, which I do that. I used to, but yeah, right out like this. The other way you can do it is to drop the hand and push through the palm like that. And it's like you're like out to the diagonal pushing. All right, so everybody want to try that? Take arm out. And remember, focus on that shoulder staying dropped, pushing through the fingertips. I won't make you guys hold it in 3 minutes, but you can probably feel it pretty fast. And you just, what the whole movement is like you're pushing out. So as much as you can, you'll start to feel the other muscles start to contract. This is actually an arm workout.
Yeah.
Right? And you can, if you can feel it, you can kind of feel in the shoulder blade starting to release a little bit, or you might feel it in your fingers or your wrists. My forearms are always super tight, so that's where I always start to feel it. But this eventually, when you hold this, you'll feel it all the way out to the wrists and out to the fingertips. And this is definitely one of the chronic things right here. So right here is super good. Yeah. And so whenever you're ready, you can drop that down. So that is what the term telescoping means. And if you've ever taken in my yoga classes, I definitely bring this into my classes. And that was a big switch that happened when I started doing fascia stuff after yoga, is it's way more about opening up and then coming in. So, and that is, it's like the two concepts behind the stretching is you're elongating and then compressing. And you'll see as we go into it. Telescoping. And then the third thing is presence. It is not enough to simply go through the motions of the stretch. One needs to fully participate by bringing their full attention into their body. That's where those couple little exercises before, talking about mind-body connection and how important it is. And that's why this is a really fun time to be able to just sit with yourself and feel what's going on in there, because we usually don't know until it's too late. And we call that also, like, when you do start to stretch and you'll start to feel other things come up, we call it the fascial voice. So it's a voice telling you, yeah, now go work over there, because that's where the other restriction is that's causing this one. And I will feel that when I work on people. And a lot of times motor stuff will pop up, like a person will start getting red in a certain place, or they'll start twitching in a certain place, like on the other side of the body. And that's me knowing that that's where I need to go now, because that's, yeah. And then if you follow that line, they really will start going into like an unwinding thing, which I'll explain later. It's when you really get intuitive in your body and you just let the body move and release however it needs to. This also has a lot to do with softening. It's a really hard thing for me. So I understand if it's difficult. It's taken me a long time to even understand and what it feels like. If you've been physically active majority of your life and on the go all the time, learning to soften is hard. But that, again, by this thing where it is like 3 to 5 minutes and you have to sit there, it's almost forcing you to have to soften, to learn how to soften. And that was one of the biggest benefits for me, I think, getting into all of this stuff is I slowed down. Even though I'm going still. Okay. Lower portion of the body. The pelvis is the foundation of our body. Yes, when it is balanced, the legs are aligned and our feet sit equally on the ground, and it allows the rest of our spine and upper body to evenly stack on top, keeping our various structures in their natural positions and functioning with optimal biomechanics. So we tend to have a common pelvic rotation. And it has a lot to do with a lot of people being right-handed. I'm left-handed, and mine's opposite, and that's what happened. My vulnerable side is where all my stuff started to happen. So mine was the opposite. So this one, if you're right-handed, this is probably going to be you. Not always, because there's a lot of stuff that can happen with the body, but typically this is what will happen. Is the right hip is slightly rolled forward and the left hip is slightly rolled back. So the pelvis is kind of like a wheel, right? So one is rolls forward and then the other one will roll back. Due to how the legs attach to the pelvis, this causes the right leg to become longer. The doctor ever told you that you have a leg longer than the other? Just kidding, they might have not. So there's like 2% of people have a longer leg than others, but usually it is a pelvic floor rotation. And again, the way the legs are attached to the pelvis, when they rotate, the right leg becomes longer. And for the knee and the ankle, and then the knee and the ankle collapse inward. So I'm gonna pass around this little diagram in here so you guys can get a nice little visual of what I'm talking about, because it is very interesting. Here we go.
I saw it. Yeah.
Right there's what I'm talking about. And it'll show you the little arrows,
Yeah.
right? So the leg that becomes longer, the inside starts to collapse. And at the same time, the left leg becomes shorter and rotates outward slightly. So I'm going to show you guys on me, even though it's opposite. So this right hip, right, rolled back. So it's up and back. So this leg naturally pins out. It has brought this left leg to come in. So my left hip is down and pinned in. Okay. So if I'm just like walking, that's where you go. That's how you can find where you're rotated out. All right. And so this would be the shorter leg and this would be the longer leg. But really why this is longer is because the pelvis rotated down, the knee and everything is collapsing in. Guess where I get all my tension on this leg? Lateral, right? Because everything's pulling that way. Yeah. So when we start working on our hips, you'll notice why you need different hip stretches for either side of the hip, because they're dealing with a different one. When the pelvis is rotated, the sacrum or base of the spine is torqued, causing imbalances of the surrounding soft tissues and creating a rotation scoliosis of the rest of the spine. Lastly, the pubic symphysis, the joint where the pelvis joins in front, often shears. This one misalignment can significantly increase energy expenditure, contributing to fatigue. The alignment of the pelvis has a direct effect on the rest of the body and is often the best place to begin treatment, regardless of where you may be experiencing symptoms. The reason for that is because from that pelvic floor rotation, your fascia will crawl up the spine, rotating it and moving it around. It'll go up into the shoulders. It'll move the shoulders around to however this rotation is. It will do it all the way up the body. And that's what I was explaining what happened to me. It went all the way up my body, disconnected my whole right shoulder, the outside under the ribs, and then up through the neck. Not only does the fascia come up through the neck, it goes into the brain and it twists around the cranial bones. So when this starts getting real tight and this starts getting, it has everything to do with the hips. Oh, it is wild, but that is how it works. And that is why the pelvis is so important. And that is like the reason my injury was so bad is because it was my sacrum that absolutely went out of line. Like my sacrum was up, it's up like this. It's getting better, but there's a little bubble right there that kind of keeps it. Yeah. But it's getting much better. It's probably the best it's been. Yeah. And when I started getting my hip back into place, my shoulder pain started going away. My neck pain started going away. So yeah, it still needed, attention, but it the hips and the pelvis, that's definitely usually the root of everything. Absolutely. And that's kind of the only big rule we were taught in myofascial release, is that it always starts with the hips, and you always open the hips first before you do anything else in the body, because whatever else you do to the body, the second they take a couple steps, it all goes back. Because the hips are directing the show. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is a pelvic rotation. And they recommend to do this before you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning, because this is going to put your pelvis in line, and then it creates everything throughout the day, just a lesser wear and tear. So if you go ahead and lay down, you're going to take one leg and it's going to be slightly bent. All right. Take the other leg, take that heel, and you're going to place the heel on top of the knee. All right. So you're at the same time, you're going to push that heel into the knee, and you're going to push the knee into the heel. Right. So you're creating like a counter, your own little counter force. Right. And you might not feel a lot in this, but it is squaring off your pelvis. Sometimes people will feel a lot and sometimes they don't feel much. Oh. And if you want to try the other side, I'm not going to stick to the 3 to 5 minute rule for some of these. Because I want to show you all the fun stuff. Heel pushing into the knee, knee pushing into the heel. Creating your own natural tension. And then the third thing for balancing the pelvis is if you take that squishy ball that I passed out and place it between the knees. You can also do it with a block. Put it between the knees. You might have done this before in a workout class or something, but you're gonna push your knees together. Ooh, and you'll probably feel that. You'll probably feel your inner thighs light up, your adductors, maybe a little bit of the pelvis. And we're just gonna hold this one here for just a little bit because this one's good. This is a really good way to learn how to activate the inner thighs as well. Because a lot of times, even when we're doing stretches, we're not fully activating, lifting up through the pelvic floor, which is what ultimately strengthens it and helps out lifting everything on your back and your shoulders. And so, as simple as it is extremely good for you.
So are we in a tilt? Are we in a pelvic tilt, or are we in flat?
Flat, yeah. You can take it into a pelvic tilt if you want, as you definitely can. But yeah, the simplest way is just flat. And you're just actively pushing the knees together for as much tension. Feels good. How's everybody feeling?
Feels really good.
Good. Right? Simple is good. Simple is good. And give it about 30 more seconds.
Judy, on that first one,
The
how
longer you hold,
rotated?
the more you're gonna feel kind of like butter melting or taffy being stretched. When we start getting into some of these bigger muscles, that's what the fascia feels like when it is elongating. Stop saying stretching. Elongating and lengthening and creating space. Okay. And then also when you come out of these stretches, make sure you come out soft. Because holding these spaces, if you've ever taken a restorative yoga class, when you sit in these poses, even though they are easier on the joints, they still can feel kind of stiff coming out of it. And that is just the rebound part of coming out. And so just give yourself the time, breathe through it.
Judy, I just felt something in my jaw root. Like, I'm not even joking, that was so wild.
Yeah. And the jaws are directly connected to your hips.
I believe you.
Yeah, if you can, it's kind of hard to, but if you can focus on softening your jaw, you can actually feel your hips soften. It's very subtle, but. Okay, and while you guys are down on the floor, another way that you can stretch out the lower back and even getting down into the pelvic is using the therapy balls. Now, the therapy balls can be a little bit more intense. So some people will just roll up a towel and place it on their lower back to lay back on because they just want like a little bit of support. I like the balls. I'm going to use this. This is a cranial cradle. This is not a ball, but it has a ball-like thing on the side. So you want to place the ball. It's going to be like right here, kind of on the side. And as you roll onto it very gently, you might want to move it around because again, it's going to be different from where things are bothering you. So set it just kind of right on the side right here. You're going to have to lift your glute up a little bit to get underneath it. And again, it is different for everyone. I like to call this little spot your butt pocket because it's like the ball just gets right in the pocket right there. And you can even take it down a little lower, kind of where the glute and the hamstring, where that little cup, what is that one? The minimus, gluteus minimus. And if you want to just play around for a second and kind of feel around. And if you want to go to the other side, you can. You can also take the ball up on the top of the hip, kind of between the lower back and the top of the hip again. It might be a little too intense for some. It's kind of like deep tissue massage. If you're at deep tissue massage, the more you get it done, the more you like it. It's the discomfort turns into pleasure. And yeah, I used to hate deep tissue. I was like, would jump off the table real fast. And now my masseuse is like, I've never seen somebody like deep tissue so much. And again, therapy balls, you can get them in all different densities, right? I have real soft ones up to pretty hard ones. All depends on where I'm at, where my hips are at, what's going on with me. I like to have options.
I love the balls. When you told me these have been a game changer. Trip to Cape Cod.
Didn't Ivy, she did not have pain in her hip one of the first times driving. Using that again, driving, take the balls with you.
Yep.
Here's a pain.
It is. The balls are unbelievable.
It is.
And that's what's cool is you can do it by yourself. It's like you don't. That's what's kind of.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing is like I love doing MFR therapy on people. I think everybody needs it, but you're not going to make progress if you're not doing a daily practice with yourself. And that people even ask me now, they're like, you do so much yoga, you must yoga every day. Like, I do not. Yeah. I do not. My self-practice is these blocks, these balls. Yeah. And that's what I do when I have 30 to 45 minutes. And then after you do this, you stretch. Yoga comes a lot easier. You know, it's a lot easier to get into the stretches because you've made space in the joints and stuff, and it gets easier. If the nerves aren't happy, they don't want to be stretched. Okay, so I'm going to show you another stretch, and this one does require a chair.
Oh my gosh, I've always wanted one of those.
This thing has been my best friend lately because it's not just an inverse stool, it's so much more.
It's so fun.
So this is called the sacroiliac joint stretch. And this is really good again forward fold is not an option for you, or a yoga stretch like that is freaking your body out even more, that's when we need to start using props. So you place one foot up, and this can go as low as here. You could even use a block. It doesn't matter which. You guys can use a block too if you want to kind of follow along. And I'll give you the option too to practice on here if you want to, but just to get the concept down, yeah, we can use the block. So you place one foot on the block, adjust that other leg how you need to, because we're going to be coming forward. All right, so take it out as wide as you need to. There you go. And so all you're doing is just rolling forward like this. And you're gonna feel a nice hip stretch without having to do much. Now. Bring this baby around so you can try it. There you go. Bring that foot forward. There you go. Round, round. There you go. Oh yeah. So here we have her. Yes, beautiful. I'm gonna bring this around so you guys can get an idea what it smells like. Okay. Put it on there. Not the flat right here. There you go. Now, arms up. There you go. As far as you want to go. How's that feel? It's really good.
I actually have one of these at home. Maybe I'll start using it.
That's novel concept.
Would you like to try this too? Sure. Alright, either side, just put one foot right here. There you go. And then you can take that foot out right there. And then you're gonna take the arms and you're just gonna kind of round. And you can do that on That's better than forward fold.
That's good.
Right, because you get that nice forward stretch and then you also get your hip stretch out. Well, you'll feel it as you come down. Yeah, yeah, because as you'll come down, you'll feel it. Yeah. I wanted you guys to feel it. I was about to bring 9 chairs in my car. One foot there. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, it's supposed to feel right here.
Yes. You should feel more too like it's like an opening on the right side too, kind of. That feels nice. Let's do that. Which one's the bad one? Okay, then put that in here. Like come up here? Yeah. Move that forward. Yeah, that's fine. Now bring it around. It's really like you're just like diving over it. Yeah. Like in the back here. Yep. This is an inversion stool, which I'll show you its main use is your headstand. Yeah, and you go up and yeah, it hurts. My shoulders help so much with my shoulder. So everything getting dropped. Yeah.
Maybe you need to keep your head going down.
Like you're diving.
Like I'm diving,
Like you're diving.
like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I like sink in?
Sink, yeah.
Sink, okay.
Yeah. And it, like I said, you know, you can move how you need. It's not one of those where it's like you have to be in the spot. Beautiful.
Okay.
The one that's bugging you, put up top.
Soften.
Yes. How's that feel?
Yeah.
There we go.
Let's just move through it.
We didn't done that.
There you go. How'd that feel?
I feel it back here.
Yeah, it'll work both hips.
Judy, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I'm only feeling it in the backs of my thighs,
Mm-hmm.
not in my hips at all.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing?
That might mean that the back of your thighs is what's tight.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet. It's not allowing, which the next thing we'll do will help, but it's not allowing the stretch to get up in the glute.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, my last massage, she was like,
Is
we
that
gotta start here, just stay here for a while.
Like going back to the concept that if she held that for longer, would it let it get opened up in there eventually? Okay.
Yeah, that would be a 5-minute-er.
Yeah.
Because it's like pushing through,
Yeah.
right? Mhm.
So if you're thinking of the working schedule and doing a practice, like, can you rotate through some of the exercises? Like, if you're gonna do the 5-minute, like, you do this one Monday and it's like an every other day or an every 3-day rotation, so it's more like feasible in the schedule?
What I would do is I would pick 4 to 5. 4 to 5 stretches that are specific for whatever is hurting you the most right now. And kind of gear it like that, and then work with those, instead of trying to do a bunch of them. And not, you know what I mean, and feeling like pick a couple and
Okay.
try to be really good about those.
Okay.
And be like, these 3, I'm doing these 3
Then
every morning and every night.
And then on those, does it need to be both sides, like each time, like when I do
If
it on
you're
the left, I
doing
think
the
lots of
pelvic,
it on the
if you're doing your pelvis, yes.
Mhm.
Because again, the one restriction caused the other restriction. So yeah, both sides. The only time I don't necessarily assess the other side is if, again, I'm working on somebody and it's very chronic. And they absolutely need that full attention just on that one thing. Like I held a lady's arm for an hour, just like this, just uncompressing it. So yeah, in those situations, but mostly with the MFR, again, we're trying to get that balance. So it is really good to do both sides. One side might not need as long though. That would be kind of where I would.
Doesn't always have to be equal though.
The arms and the arms get a little bit different because being left-handed, right-handed, but the pelvis I would definitely be a little more attentive to doing both sides to make.
Start on the bad side? Or start?
Yes, no, wait, no,
Start on the good side.
start on the good side, yeah.
How come?
Because that's the last restriction. So it's like if you think about order of
Oh, you
operations.
release everything else first.
So you can-
Because the deeper one is getting tied down by the other ones. So like this hip, even though this restriction came second, it's still pinning this one in first, even though it came second. So I have to open up this one to be able to get this one, because also the place that's been restricted the longest is the weakest. So you're not going to have the strength and the muscle as much as the other side. So that's kind of the other thing behind it too. Yeah, because a lot of times when you get, that's why you'll get that weird feeling sometimes coming out of the stretch, because those muscles haven't been worked at all. And they're like, it's like you just made them weight lift. Like they're like, what? So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Wonderful questions. Okay. So the next is releasing the hamstrings with the ball or the block. So we're going to get back down on the ground. And again, you can use the ball or the block. And this is another feel one because we have different knots in our ham. Everybody has different knots in their hamstrings. You can take the ball or the block and you place it underneath the hamstring. Make sure that heel's pushed down and you're just going to gently lift.
Gently, lift the foot
Or the foot.
with your hands.
Yeah, and you don't have to. If you have a ball, you probably don't have to. When you lift, you'll feel it deeper. If you get the ball, you can get a little bit more direct, right? So if your hamstrings can take it, use the block. The block is gonna be a little softer, a little easier.
How far up? Like, where
Depends.
is it?
I like to get right between the glute and the hamstring. Because to me, that spot for me is the most tied up. It's like my hamstring and my glute are glued together.
You found it?
Yeah, so there, and typically people right between the glute and the hamstring get cemented right there. And your glutes help you with so much. And that's why a lot of times people will train their glutes and their hamstrings will get really tight because you're just working your hamstrings. Your hamstrings are glued into your glutes so much that the hamstrings are working and the glutes are just getting pulled when the glutes are really supposed to be what's doing it. So what this creates is a separation between the hamstrings and the glutes and releasing right through there. You can also take it lower. Just be gentle the closer you get to the knee, right? There are these little spots behind the knee that you'll get really tight tension spots right through here. Those can be some good spots to put the ball. Yeah. I've had a massage therapist dig in and I had no idea I had a giant tension spot right here and it was causing shin splints. So a lot of times the shins and the fronts of the ankles get all tied up right in here too. So yeah, we're slowly working our way down. So, you know, if you want to keep on moving down, you don't have to keep it up in your hamstring. The calves are the same thing. And I think this feels so good. You might not, but I stick the ball right in the middle of my calf and I just let it rest and I'll kind of roll it around. The calf is also another reason that the front of the leg gets so tight because it just grabs onto everything. And then the Achilles, a lot of times people's Achilles will snap from the tightness in the calf and the back of the leg and everything. Yeah, so they're all really good. If you're physically active, I would roll your legs out every day.
Start from the.
Yeah, pelvis and then work your way down. Because then also what you'll find is that a lot of the stuff up in the, even though I know everybody deals with shoulder and neck stuff, it still is coming from the pelvis. So yeah, and then another a more common one that you've probably seen is when you put the ball under the arch and you roll it around. And it's wild. You'll see people, they'll keep the ball under their foot for 3 to 5 minutes, and then they can drop down lower.
Yeah.
It's pretty, and that was one of the first things I saw with fascia. Was my teacher, yeah, he like rolled out the bottom of his foot for a couple minutes. And then he went back down. He did like a forward fold before, and then he did it, and then he went back down, and it was like a clear inch. He dropped further. So yeah, that's really good too.
The arch and all the way up into the metatarsals.
So you can also get right up here too. So there's a spot right here. That's what I do when I work on people. I peel open that part of the foot, and then I peel open the arch. Yeah. The more you get to like right at the top of that part, ooh, like right here. Ooh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's actually, I mean, there's self-fascial releases for your toes, for your fingers, like those little the joints in your fingers, you can release them, like, because it's just fascia. Like if you have I have a smashed joint right here, it's slowly been straightening out because I've been doing little. Yeah, we'll work on it.
Judy, if you have plantar fasciitis, is that what they recommend doing? I don't. I see, this one doesn't feel me as much as like the.
So we did the back. Another great one for the front of the ankle. And this one can get a little, so you might need to place a hand on something. But it's that top of that foot. And you just gently draw your chest back a little bit. And you'll feel it immediately. And you can, if it feels okay, you can kind of wiggle the foot a little bit left to right too.
Where do you feel it?
The front, you're gonna feel the top of the ankle and then the front of the hip.
Feel your shin?
Yeah, and your shin. really where you're tight, wherever you're tight in the front. You might feel if you push your foot back just a little bit further. In your toes, but that fits you, yeah. Anywhere the front of the leg is tight is where you're gonna feel it.
See, yeah, and that's when you talk about, so going out of that, and this,
Yeah.
you do then feel that, is that the rebound or whatever you said?
It
I was
is.
like,
The
ooh.
rebound is
Yeah.
that, yeah, it's
Afterwards.
kind of, it cannot feel the best, but it's necessary, it's just coming out of it. And think about how often do we even come into this position?
No.
Literally never.
Never, never, like.
Our body doesn't never know what's
So this is so good, and the tops of your ankles will be the last thing to talk
So
to.
like so Greco-Roman somehow.
No.
So I like that. It's so good.
Okay, cast ankles, bottom of the foot.
This is the stuff, so I stand at my desk and then the stuff I need to be doing all day.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you a couple stretches. And you can follow along with me if you want, or you can just observe me. But I'm gonna show you, just, they're gonna look more like, kind of like yoga stretches, for the back of your hips and your legs and stuff. And I'll also give you a couple options too. But this one right here, the knees into the chest, you've probably seen this many times. When you come into this stretch, you're squeezing the inner thighs together. Hands are on the front of the shins. You're pulling the knees into the chest. But what I really want you to focus on is the lower back. Focus on the lower back, flattening down into the floor. And if you can, maybe squeeze the knees a little closer. And you'll feel the lower back wanting to come up, but then actively try to pull it back down. This is another great way to square off your pelvic floor. If the other little things aren't doing it for you, this is a really good one. And you'll see this in yoga a lot. Okay, and then from here, take the arms out to the side. And you're just doing a spinal twist. So the knees are dropping to one side and the gaze is going the opposite direction. And again, these stretches, you can move a little bit in it. Like if you kind of want to roll the hip, you can. You know, if you want to lengthen out the left leg and straighten it out, you'll get an extra little stretch. So you can move around in the stretch, but I do, whenever you are doing this, try holding 3 to 5 minutes on each side. You'll feel the arm elongate out. This is a great way you can practice telescoping the arm. So that whatever arm is pulled out to the side, you're just reaching it further and further out. But actively make sure that shoulder does not pop up to the ear. You want to keep it down, or we are countering what we're doing. And if you want to try the other side, you're welcome to it as well. Or if there's one side that you just want to sit in, we're doing a lot of stretches, so I'm not too worried about the being imbalanced. Oh, that feels good. And also before you were to hold a stretch, if you wanted to like rock back and forth and make a little movement before you land in the stretch, that's also a good way to kind of get your body to drop into it. So you kind of melt into it a little bit more instead of trying to take a higher energy into lower energy. Okay. Does everybody know child's pose? Excellent. Child's pose is a great one for the hips. And if you can get somebody to push down on your hips while you're in child's pose, which if you want me to, I can do it for you guys. So traditionally, they teach you knees together. I don't think that leaves you any room for your hips. So I say wide. Sarah says wide too.
Yeah.
We got a yoga therapy teacher on the line here. You know, chest to the floor, knees wide, pelvic floor is pulling back. So try not to get caught up in pushing forward. You still want to be anchoring those hips back, 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 back. It's almost as if the back side is wanting to get pulled back, and then the arms are helping the front side pull forward. So you're almost like pulling the back apart in a very subtle manner. And I'm gonna come around and push on your hips and just give you that little extra. And in child's pose is also a really good one to work yourself down deeper and deeper, right? It's a pretty comfy pose. And if you want to practice softening and feeling that deeper and deeper release, it can be a good one for that. And if it's uncomfortable for you, then you can adjust how you need. If you need to bring the knees together, you can do that too. They're all going through different stuff, so it is different for everyone. Even though we have a common pelvic rotation. After that, face off. Oh yeah. I swear, like now when I work on people, it's like their body parts start talking to me. Uh-huh.
The hips don't lie.
No. She can hear me. Yeah. And the sustained pressure that I'm putting on you is pretty much the same kind of pressure that I put on you when I do MFR therapy. It's a sustained pressure for a specific amount of time. Same concept behind the stretching, where you're holding that compression, that stretch for 3 to 5 minutes, really allowing the deeper release. I want to eventually do a partner workshop.
Yeah.
Teach you guys how to work on each other. A lot of MFR therapy is pretty simple.
One time packet.
That's a good.
Could we bribe husbands with beer as our partners?
It's funny too, because it's get some people that think they're real strong and then you have them trying to hold these things for. I've had some people come up to me later on and they're like, I had no idea. But it gets you strong. Like my fingers and my wrists, part of the reason they stopped getting so upset with me is when I started doing this work on people, and I started getting stronger. You've been doing the quad stretch. Every day.
Numerous times a day.
The quad melt.
That's a good thing.
Might be, but that might be why you need it, you know what I mean? Something that you're hitting that barrier pretty fast. So that, I think that's all that is your response, just.
I just feel like.
And failing surgery. Yeah, especially for the post-surgery stuff.
Yeah.
Real important because the surgery. It's a deep thing.
Yes.
Okay. There was one thing I wanted to go over real quick before I. Okay, grab a block. So this is the quad melt. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So it's easier if you go ahead and lay down on the belly. I actually put a video up on this recently. So block to the side. What you're gonna do is you're gonna peel the hip up and place the block under the quad. And then you're gonna roll back, squaring the shoulders to the floor. Feel that pressure on the quad, right? So then after you get that pressure, you're just gonna gently shift the body forward just a little bit. See, I barely even moved. You probably didn't even see me move, but it's just kind of more of a momentum, like you're shifting forward just a little bit. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the quad to go down, right? So it's almost like you're like going like that. Sort of. It's called the glide. So fascia glides. It's a glide system. So what we're doing is we're trying to increase the glide in our quad. And this is really good for releasing the psoas, which is really hard to release because it's right here. And it will release. You can take this block and you can move it up. And so you can go a little further up if you want to get up into the hip flexor. Really good for releasing the hip flexor. A lot of people are very tight in the psoas and the hip flexor. If you want to take it even deeper, curl the heel up. I started doing it without even realizing. Yeah. So you'll feel where it's like pinned down, and then it kind of takes it a little bit deeper. Yeah.
I can attest to this. She helped me learn this like last week, and I wasn't walking a week and a half
And that was her lower back that was being affected by her quad.
She's a miracle.
I wonder if her driving leg is always tighter.
It's because that when you move back and forth between the pedals, yeah. Because my right hip, that would when I was driving to my 200-hour, I was such a pain, and they told me, they were like, it's that little movement right there. Yeah, because it's not a follow through movement, it's just a. And those movements, the real short movements you do during the day, are usually the ones that get your shoulders and everything compressed, right? And even the leg stuff too. So this quad stretch, I think I try to do this one every day. This is a good one, really, really good one. I also find when I do this one that my energy goes up, right? There's really something with the stomach and the digestive system that kicks in when you start releasing this front part. It's just because the psoas and the fascia in there can get trapped down onto the digestive organs, and even menstrual issues can happen from this tightness as well. And this is another thing they're starting to find out, is that the fascia will actually wrap around the organs and compress the organs, and even how they're twisting around the spine will move the organs. So
that crazy fascia.
We were like watching people get their ribs pushed back into place that didn't even know they had ribs out of place in training. Like, it was so bizarre, but so cool. So yeah, this very lovely one, my favorite. Okay. And then one other one I want to show you, because we did this one in class yesterday. So student Saturday, who's been here, she was telling me that her physical therapist told her she needed when she's in pigeon pose. So this is pigeon pose. Right, you've seen this yoga pose right here. It's not an easy one. It's not fun to get into necessarily if you're not ready for it. So for her therapist, yeah, right, for her therapist, he told her that she needed her shin to get as parallel as possible to the front of the mat. That's really hard because you see my hips like jacking up, right? So in yoga, they will tell you that the ultimate goal is to get that shin parallel to the front of the mat. It's really hard on your joints. And a lot of yoga stretches now aren't necessarily made for our bodies. Not that they're not good, but they just kind of need to be tweaked a little bit, which is where the props come in handy and are really fun. So the best way, what I showed her is, I'm gonna do it on here. You can do it on as high of something as you need, but just for purposes right here, you take, it's a little too short. I'm gonna turn her over here so she can see me. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you take the shin, place it on something that's up like this, and then come forward. Right? So my shin is parallel, and I'm hitting those back muscles, which is what he wanted you to hit, those certain muscles. Yeah. So you don't have to get down into crazy pigeon pose to do that. This is a really good one. Would you guys want to come over here and try it? Too. Want to take a field trip? Come on over here. See what we're doing. Yeah, there. Did you see that? You got it. Okay, good. It's a good one. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The complete outside band of it. Yeah. You guys can do the other side too if you would like.
Look at that cute baby.
Okay. So we've got about 10 minutes left. And I want to go through some stuff on the like in the shoulders, in the back, and around here. Next week we're gonna do some cranial stuff, hands stuff, and some other, and we're also gonna get into unwinding, which is allowing your body to move how it wants to. Go into more later. So I'll just start going on about it. And we'll get done. So some of the really nice ones that I've been doing that have been really good for my shoulder and everything that I've had going on. The block. Get a block. This time, where we are placing the block is going to be pretty much where your shoulder blade is, right? It doesn't have to be exactly on the shoulder blade, but kind of you're going to want to have to feel for where your tension is, because some people it's like right up under the wing, some people it's more on the outside. So again, it's kind of, you got to feel around, but ultimately you're trying to get it kind of right on that shoulder, right?
On the side, on one.
Yes, on one side. Yeah, pick one side. Pick a wing. Pick a wing. So I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to come around and help, okay? So we're right here. What I'm doing is kind of similar to the quad thing we did, I'm just gently lifting my glutes up a little bit and pushing this way, pushing back towards my head. Yeah. So we're dragging the shoulder down, right? You understand? So by pushing up, like up, not up, but towards my head, the block is pressed into the shoulder, so then the shoulder stays in place while the body kind of shifts, right? Which is that same concept with the quad. It's like the glide system. And so you're applying pressure and you're releasing, which is the ultimate goal. Compression and releasing. Okay. You'll probably feel it in the arm, the elbow. Feel okay? Can you adjust? What do you think? I might have to go a little deeper. I might have to. Now bring your feet up. Slightly come up just a little bit off the glutes. There we go. Yeah, okay. You're good, yeah. And then you just kind of
I'm just learning.
so it's like yeah, you're gonna feel that.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it might, if you're not feeling it too well, the block might need to get closer to the spine. It might be too on the outside, yeah.
I didn't know what to do with the other side.
Yeah, so then you're looking at the glutes and now you're just gonna jump. Okay, there you go.
Next thing is.
You need help.
Oh, no, no,
Okay.
no.
What do you do with your head?
I've hurt the shoulder before.
Good.
Yeah, or just how you need to for sure. Yeah, this is definitely not a one way ticket. It might need to be.
So this is kind of like supported there.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, it's making your heart open and it's, yes, open your thymus, the thymus release. So now you're lifted and now that you need the left side.
Oh, right.
So you're kind of like lifting your feet into. Okay.
I feel it stretching my, is it supposed to be on my left shoulder? Okay, feel it on the left.
Yeah, because this is gonna release.
And then can I hold my arms up like this?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want with your head. Like I said, it's not a one-way method. Like if you need to put something under your neck to help support, and again, you want to make it supportive as well, not trying to stress it out the body out even more. You can help.
Yeah.
Mhm. There we go. There you go. Feel that? Okay.
I feel like
Okay.
Yeah.
It's shifting.
Thank you.
You could probably put yours a little closer to the spine if you wanted to. You don't want to do that. Too much. Okay, so come out of that pretty easily. This pretty intense one. Block. This is the side, right? So you're taking the block into the side of the ribs right here. And you're just gently shifting yourself down. Draw this arm out to the side right here.
At the top of your rib?
Well, you can move it. It can be at the top, depends on where the tension spots are hidden. A lot of people will foam roll like this. You've probably seen people foam roll. Yeah, but again, you can really get some good spots. So what happens again is your torso rotates when all of this starts to happen. So for example, my body, my right hip was pinned out, my rib cage and torso turned to the left. So my hip was turned out and then my rib cage is turned in, right? And that's what you'll find. is that when your hip, wherever your hip is turned out, your ribs will actually start to pin in, creating heart disease, creating breast cancer, creating all kinds of issues in the chest because it is compressing. I had acid reflux when I was in 8th grade, and the doctors couldn't figure out why, because it made no sense. 8th graders shouldn't be getting acid reflux. It was from my torso turning in on my esophagus. So yeah, when this started fixing, guess what else started helping? My digestive issues started going away. So it is pretty crazy how much all this stuff can affect you. With this one, you can also kind of roll to the back a little bit or forward too. Yep. And it is, like I said, it can be intense. The restrictions are deep and they're emotional and they're tough. And so you really got to breathe in and sit with yourself, and teaches you a lot about yourself. Okay. Another one, which is kind of intense, but can help, is you place that block in the middle of the back and open. Okay. Now, this is going to be different for different people. So move the block up the spine if it's uncomfortable. Move the block down the spine if it's uncomfortable, right? Anybody need help? Raise your hand. We're good. I really like this.
Stay here a while.
This is a definite 5-minuter. You can also do the you can do it flat if that's easier. Yeah, because again, it's one of those that like you might have to work your way. And it is like it's one of those gradual ones. With props, you can incline further up. The more comfortable and loose everything gets. That's what's so cool.
Feel like layers. Is there a possibility that you couldn't go in like that is so painful?
I would maybe put on the ball under with that or something.
Oh, that's
for it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Just to support. That's what the one we were doing. Some of them, their neck was hurting a little bit, and I was like, just put that ball right under there. I'll tell you guys this real quick about the upper body, which is really important. So the biggest issue with the upper body is the front posture, right? This issue, which is our present day issue with everyone. So what happens when this happens? When this happens, okay? The nerves on the side of the neck drop down under the collarbone, go down through the arms, through the wrists, and through the fingers. What is always hurting people all the time? It's all right here. The more you can pull that posture back, the more this is going to release. A great example is carpal tunnel. Carpal tunnel is caused by bad posture. Right? Why do people get carpal tunnel surgery and then continue to still have issues? Because that wasn't the problem. It was the posture. So when the posture goes like that and the nerves drop down and everything stops wiring around here, cuts off the blood vessels, circulation, everything just gets cut off. So then your extremities start to yell at you. The telescoping is a really great way to kind of start opening that up, to really feel where that chest needs to be. If you've got a bed or a massage table, oh, right here, arms open wide, whatever feels good. Also on a table, You can drop a leg. And open the hip this way too. The bed's a whole nother prop. And real quick, I'll show you. There's just so many. The doorway. Another great prop. Elbows slightly bent right here. Take a step forward. Come through. The higher your elbows up, go up. You're gonna feel it lower in the rib cage, or yeah, lower. When you pull down, you're gonna feel it higher. Yeah, so up here, I'm feeling it more over here in that area. When I come down, it gets right up into here. You can also grab on to something and pull right here, arm pulls, self-arm pulls, they're fantastic. This is great too for getting into telescoping as well, opening up. Yeah, so I don't want to keep you guys too over, but that would wrap up for today. And next week, like I said, we're gonna do, there's probably some more upper body and head stuff, neck stuff we're gonna do. And then some cranial, I'm gonna show you guys some cranial self stuff you can do, maybe some fingers and toes. And then we're gonna do some unwinding, which is I'm gonna turn music on and I'm just gonna let you guys move. However you want. And we're gonna do some relaxation techniques, like little body scans and stuff too. So if you want to come back next week, because I have a whole bunch more stuff. Thank you guys for coming.
Much appreciated. I love you. Mwah.
It's like, if I'm gonna teach a workshop in the middle of the summer, it is gonna be about myofascial release. To relax, especially this time of year. It's tough, you know. Yes.
You know, the hip stuff. I really wanna put this sucker right here and lay down.
Right.
Is that gonna be?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the other part about doing this stuff,
Yeah.
is you will start thinking of things. The body will start talking to you.
Yeah.
It will, like, if you take that logic brain out, that was one thing we didn't talk about, was channel 3, channel 5, the logic brain versus the intuitive brain. When we're doing these kinds of stretching, we are in the intuitive brain.
Okay.
It is being present and being in the body and not letting the logic brain take over. Because then the body starts letting you know what it wants.
Yeah.
Because you're listening to it.
Right. Thank you.
And any other questions? You are welcome to ask me. I have time.